Hello again. Now, the SA Tourism and Tottenham Hotspur sponsorship deal remains a hot topic of discussion. Today, the Tourism Minister, Patricia de Lille, going as far as calling for the deal to be dropped because she says, according to legal advice she has received, it was unlawful and invalid. Let's speak now to Kelvin Watt, a sponsorship specialist, to discuss this matter further. Kelvin, good afternoon. Welcome today. Well, that's a new development. We've heard from the Minister of Tourism. We do know, of course, that this whole proposed deal by SA Tourism with Tottenham Hotspur caused a lot of outrage, and some people were failing to see its sponsorship value.
Yes, I think obviously it was very well documented at the time that it was quite a controversial decision. Obviously very difficult for me to comment on her today from a legal perspective, from a legality perspective, as that's really a legal matter, not my area of expertise. I think the one interesting area for me, and which I think we raised at the time, is with respect to sole source. I think she said today that there were potentially other opportunities, and because it required a level of procurement, they needed to look at a number of other sources. And I think there were many of us in the sponsorship environment who believed at the time that although sponsorship is a wonderful medium, the Tottenham Hotspur partnership, and particularly sort of the sleeve branding elements of it, might not be the best sponsorship elements with respect to what South African tourism needed to communicate the sort of benefits of tourism and the opportunities for tourism to South Africa.
Yeah, well, the way it looks now, although, of course, I'm not asking the legal questions, it's very clear from the Minister. She's advised the SA Tourism Board to stop this deal. What are the implications? I mean, if you are a sponsorship specialist, if you were considering a potential sponsorship and then you have to pull out of it, what are the implications?
Well, look, I think there's quite a bit that we don't know. What we're certainly not aware of is what commitments were made. Has an agreement been signed? By what we do know is that any agreement needed the Minister's approval before signature took place. So my guess is that no contract has been signed, but we don't know that for sure. Obviously, if that was the case, there would be some very interesting legal issues, with respect to Tottenham Hotspurs and South African tourism, but we don't know what the situation is there. Certainly, there must have been some commitments made. Obviously, from a Tottenham Hotspur perspective, there'll be a great deal of disappointment because I'm sure they were, so to speak, taking that money to the bank. They were banking it into their revenues for the year and would have been, pretty positive with respect to that. And it was clearly a very, very good deal. I mean, I think at the time we saw in the numbers that were released, or some of the numbers that came into the public domain, that it was somewhere between 30 and 40% more than Arsenal were receiving for a very, very similar sponsorship. So it certainly was a very, very good deal for Tottenham Hotspurs. I think a lot of the question mark at the time was it the best deal, and was it the deal that South African tourism should be looking at, and what were the rights and benefits that were going to do the job that tourism in South Africa needed. I think at the time we spoke about the Rwanda deal, for example, at Arsenal. Rwanda's awareness levels around the world from a tourism perspective are not what South Africa's awareness look. South Africa hasn't got an awareness problem. South Africa's problems are more issues with in respect to, crime, load shedding, all these sort of things that make South Africa a bit problematic from a tourist perspective, and we needed a medium to be communicating all the positive aspects of tourism to South Africa. Awareness certainly wasn't a problem for us, which it was for Rwanda, and clearly there is some evidence to support that the Arsenal deal did a lot of work for Rwanda from an awareness perspective.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of awareness, particularly in England, of South Africa. I mean, we have historic relations. We know how that is. What are the main considerations, Kelvin, when you're putting together a sponsorship deal? What should you be looking to get out of it? What should SA Tourism, for example, if they were exploring a sponsorship deal, what should they be looking for? You said there were a number of possible options when this story broke early in the new year.
I think that, the big thing is for example, one of the easiest ones is awareness. And as I say, I think one thing that's very clear, South Africa doesn't have an awareness problem anywhere in the world. It's a country that, compared to most countries in the world, and certainly any others of our size, no one punches quite above their weight from an awareness perspective. I think what South Africa is looking for is a sponsorship opportunity that allows it to communicate very, very clearly about issues that may sit with a number of potential tourists and what's keeping them away. And that, I think those are very clear for us. There's obviously crime issue, no matter where you go in the world, it's something that's spoken about. Load shedding and some of the issues of that have had a major impact with South Africa. Right now we've, again on Monday, we had a little bit more of sort of political instability and what that means for tourists and keeping them away. So, those are all issues that we need a sponsorship opportunity that give us the platform to address those issues. We would also be looking for a platform that helps us to say, what it is that makes tourism to South Africa very, very special. And I think one of the more disappointing things for me personally is South Africa's got, it's just one of the most extraordinary tourism destinations in the world. It's got so much to offer so many different people. And what we really should be looking for that are platforms that can help us deliver that messaging. And, I think one thing that we've got to be aware of is that, for example, someone who wants to come to the Western Cape and tour with respect to wine and food and the sort of those elements may be looking for something very different to people who are perhaps coming for a beach or a holiday or the mountains or safari opportunity, or, people who are coming from the rest of Africa, for example, where there are other considerations of what people are looking for, shopping opportunities. I mean, there's a lot of these reasons that tourism is driven. I think we should be looking for platforms that talk to those reasons and start giving people a reason to be here, and perhaps create some clarity around the effects of other perceived issues that people have, as opposed to just simply putting a flag or a name on a sleeve and some branding around a field, which really will do a great job for awareness, but it's not really a sort of issue that South Africa has is trying to raise awareness.
Okay.
We already have that.
Thank you very much, Kelvin Watt, a sponsorship specialist, just weighing in on today's news that the Minister of Tourism has asked the SA Tourism Board to stop the proposed deal with Tottenham Hotspur, which was going to cost about R1 billion.